from where we ended last time. So we'll do significant figures, then we'll be moving like that. Okay. So what are significant figures? What do you understand by significant figures? What are they? What do we use them for? Okay. What do we use significant figures for? What are they used for, significant figures? What are they? Okay, so significant figures, they are simply a measure of physical quantity that will help us tell if we are accurate enough, okay? So if you're having a large significant figure, that tells that let's say if you're doing an experiment, that will tell you that you are more accurate with the values you're obtaining. Okay, so this one, the significant figures, they just help us in our accuracy or precision of our experiment we are doing. Okay, so we understand what accuracy and precision is as we are moving. Okay, so for now, let's focus more on the significant figures. What are the rules we apply when dealing with significant figures? Okay, so these are some of the rules you have in here. Number one rule, all non-zeros numbers are significant figures. Okay, so all non-zeros, as long as it's not a zero number, so all numbers from 1 to 9, okay, all non-zero numbers are significant figures. Okay. Then the other one, if you have it a zero in between numbers, okay, so if it's a zero in between numbers, that zero is going to be a significant figure. Okay. So for example, you have 103. This zero is in between digits, these numbers. Okay. It's in between 1 and 3. Okay. So that will mean that this zero here is going to be a significant figure. Okay, so here you end up having 3 significant figures. Okay, that's what we have here. Okay, so if you are, let's say you have a number like 1.03, so still in between numbers. Okay, so you have yes, you have a decimal here, but you have a number in front of a decimal and also a number after the decimal. So this zero here still going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, you still have 3 significant figures. Okay, so zeros in between numbers are going to be significant. Okay, then let's talk about trading zeros. Okay, so for trading zeros, you can have zeros after a decimal point, or you have zeros that are just there where there is no decimal point. Okay, so let's say you have this number we've been given in an example. You have 3.330. Okay, so this is a trading zero. Okay, so if it's after a decimal point, a trading zero after a decimal point is going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, this zero is going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, we have 4 significant figures. Okay, so now let's say we don't have a decimal place there. Okay, you have, let's say, 4330. Okay, so this is still a trading zero, but there's no decimal place here. Okay, so this is not going to be a significant figure. So in this case, you end up having 3 significant figures in this number. Okay, so trading zeros, if it's after a decimal point, it's going to be a significant figure. But if there's no decimal point like the way you have in here, it's not going to be significant figure. Okay, so now let me ask you a question. In 300, how many significant figures do we have here? Someone to answer, how many significant figures do we have in 300? Okay. Hello? How many significant figures do we have here in 300? Okay, so these are trading zeros, and they are not after any decimal point here. Okay, Okay, so in this case, you only have one significant figure. Okay, so here we only have one significant figure in this case, which is a 3. So these zeros, they are not after any decimal place, they are not going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, we only have one significant figure. Unless you had 3 points, so let's introduce a point there. Then we put 3 zeros like this. How many significant figures are there? Okay, so in this case, you are going to have 4 significant figures. These zeros are going to be significant figure. Okay, because they are trading zeros after a decimal place. Okay, so in this case, you're going to have 4 significant figures. Okay, so that's about trading zeros. Let's talk about leading zeros. Okay, so what do we do when you're having leading zeros? Okay, so for leading zeros, so these are zeros in front of numbers, isn't it? Okay, so for trading, they were after numbers. Now for leading zeros, there are zeros after numbers, okay, in front of a number, okay. So let's say we're having 0.543, okay. So trading zeros are not significant figure, whether you have a point or not, isn't it? Okay, so in this case, this 0 is not a significant figure. Okay, so in this case, you are only going to have 3 significant figures. Okay, same with this one. You can see you have 0.06. Okay, so in this case, these zeros, the trading zeros, these are trading zeros. These are not going to be significant figures. Okay, so in this case, you only have one significant figure. Okay, now what happens? Let's say if you are having a number looking like this. Okay, uh, okay, how many significant figures are we going to have there in this number? Hello? How many significant figures are you going to have here? Okay. So in this case, these are trading zeros. These are trading zeros. These are leading zeros, isn't it? Okay. So in this case, these trading zeros, they are after a point. They are after a decimal point. Okay. So these are going to be significant, but these leading zeros in this case are not going to be significant. This one and this one is not going to be significant. So in this case, you're going to have 1, 2, 3 significant figures. This one, and that one. Okay, so you're going to have 3 significant figures in that case. Okay, now let's do this. Okay, let's have such a number. How many significant figures do we have here? Okay, so there's no decimal point here after this 0. Okay, so this is a leading 0. It's not significant in this case. Then you have these zeros. There's no decimal point here. So these trading zeros in this case, they are also not significant in that case. So the only significant figure in this number is a 6 there. So you only have one significant figure in this case. Okay, so that's what you have in terms of the rules for significant figures. I hope people are clear. Okay, so if we are clear, if everything is okay, let's try this. Let's try to solve these questions together. Okay, so I want people to be participating so that I'm able to tell if people are getting what I'm saying here. Okay, so let's try these questions. Okay, so we have determined the number of significant figures in each of the following values. Okay, so we've been given this value, the first one, A, we have 406. How many significant figures are here? Someone to tell me if you've gotten whatever I've explained here. So how many significant figures are there? Hello? Someone to help us here. Someone to help us. Someone to help us. How many significant figures are we having in this case? If you've gotten whatever we've done. Okay, so in this case, we are going to have How many significant figures? 3 significant figures. So this is a 0 in between numbers, so it's going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, you have 3 significant figures. Okay, so now let's try this one, B. Let's try our B there. So you have 3.00. How many significant figures are there? How many significant figures do we have there? Okay. So in this case, you have these are trading zeros. They are after a decimal point, and we've said the trading zeros after a decimal point, they are going to be significant. Okay, so in this case, you have 3 significant figures. Okay, so let's go to part C. We have 3.20. How many significant figures do we have here? So you have a trading zero as well. It's after a decimal point. Okay, so in this case, you are going to have 3 significant figures. Okay, so let's go to D, to part D. Okay, so we have a leading zero there. Okay, this is a leading zero. How many significant figures do we have in this number? Okay, so we only have 2 significant figures. So this guy is not going to be significant in this case. It's a leading zero, not going to be significant. Okay, so let's try our part E. Okay, so you have this number 0.0689. Okay, how many significant figures are we having? Let's participate, guys. How many significant figures do we have in this number? Okay, so here, these are leading zeros. So these are not significant in this case. So leading zeros are not significant. Okay, so here we only have 3 significant figures. Okay. Okay, let's try F. Okay, so F we have 0.002910. Okay, so we have these leading zeros and we have 1 trading here. How many significant figures do we have in this number? How many significant figures do we have in this number? Okay, so these leading zeros, like we've mentioned, leading zeros are not significant. So these are not significant. Trading zero, we have a trading zero here. So this guy, in this case, is after a decimal point. Okay, so in that case, it's significant. Okay, so in this case, you are going to have 4 significant figures in that number. Okay. Okay, so I'll give you these other 4. You should do as an assignment. This one, that one, this one, and this one. So you can take a screenshot. Then you can inbox me, okay, your answers. So try to find that one, then you inbox me your answer. Okay. Okay. So let's move. Okay. So we go to the issue of line rounding off. Okay. So we are trying to round off numbers now. Okay. So let's see some of the rules we apply when we are trying to round off a number. Okay. So we have the first rule we usually apply. So let's say if you have a number like this one. Let's say if you have a number like this one, okay, 7.82. Okay. Then they are telling you to write this number into 2 significant figures. Okay? So the first thing you do, okay, you would want to drop these 2 here. Okay, so you would want to drop a 2 there so that you remain with a 7 and a 8. Okay, so now what do you do? Okay, so you usually refer to the 5. Okay, so if you have a number which is less than 5, okay, in this case numbers which are less than 5, we usually drop them. So in this case this number to 2 significant figures is going to be 7.8. Okay, so that's what you're having. So you drop your 2 there because it's less than 5. Okay, so the opposite is true. if you're having numbers which are greater than 5, so let's say we have 8, 7, the same number. Okay, so let's write these to two significant figures. Okay, so in this case, we are having a number here after before 8, which is greater than 5. So it's above 5. So for numbers which are above 5, we usually, the next number, we usually add a 1 to the next number. So in this case, to this 8, we'll add a 1. Okay, so in this case, we are going to have 7.9. Okay, so that's what you are going to have. Okay, now here comes an issue. What if you have a number, the next number is 5? Okay, so let's say if you have a next number, which is 5, so what do you do? So if your next number is 5, let's say you have a number like this one. So you want to write these to three significant figures. So meaning you have to end here, okay? Now this number next to 3 is a 5, okay? Now you have to ask yourself, you have to go back to issues to do with even number, odd number, okay? So I hope people still remember these types of numbers. I hope people still remember what an even number is and what an odd number is, okay? So in this case, here for this number, is it an odd number or an even number? Or let's first define what an odd number and what an even number is. What is an even number? Someone to help us define what an even number is. What is an even number?
I try.
Low.
Can I try?
What is an even number? Okay, so
Can I try?
numbers that are divisible by 2, isn't it? Numbers that can be divided by 2. Okay, so they will give you an answer without a remainder. Okay, so those are even numbers. Okay, so numbers that are divisible by 2, those are even numbers. Okay, what of odd numbers? What are odd numbers? Okay, so these, it's the opposite of even numbers, isn't it? So these are numbers that are not divisible by 2. Divisible by 2. Okay, so when you divide them by 2, you usually get a remainder from them. Those are going to be odd numbers. Okay, so now, if you're having an odd number here, okay, so if you're having an odd number, you usually get your 5, you add it here, you add the 1 to the odd number. So take note, if it's an odd number, you add the 1. So in this case, you're going to have 16.4. Okay, so that is if it's an odd number. Okay, so if it's an even number, okay, so let's say we have a number like which one? Okay, so let's get our 3.25 there. Okay, so you can tell. So let's put this in two significant figures. Let's write it in two significant figures. So we have to end there. We have to deal with these two. Now this 2 is an even number. Okay, it's next to a 5. So in this case, you don't add the you not add the 1 to this 2. So here you end up having 3.2 the way it is. You won't add anything there. So you just drop it. You drop a 5 the way it is. Okay. So that's what you usually. Okay. So I hope people are clear on odd numbers and even numbers. Okay. Are people clear on how to round off? Okay.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay. So now, what happens? Let's say you're having a number. Okay. So let's say we have a number. Okay. So let's say we have, we also have to consider, let's say we have 16 point, let's say, okay, so we have 16.351, okay. And also let's have same one, 3.250. Okay, so now again, what you have to consider as well. So if you're having a 5 here, then you look at the number next to a 5 after a 5. If a number after a 5 is not in it's any other number apart from 0, you can usually add a 1 here to the other one. Okay, to these 3 you can add a 1, becomes 16.4. Okay, but let's say if you're having a number looking like this. Okay, so let's put a 0 here. So in this case, you wouldn't add a 1 here. Okay, so you also have to consider what is on the other side. So if this 5 is followed by a 0, okay, to these 3 you wouldn't add a 1. So you would just maintain it the way it is. Okay, it will be 16.3. You wouldn't add a 1 to this one. Okay, so you also have to consider the number next to 5. So if the number next to 5 is any other number apart from 0, you follow now the issue for whether the number I'm adding is an odd number or even number. Okay, I hope people have gotten there. So in this case, you would drop this one here. You end up having 3.2. Okay, so that's what you have. So you have to consider the numbers again. Okay, so let's say we have 3.350 in this case. Okay, so in this case, we are having two significant figures. If we cut here, we have a 5. Okay, then there's a 0 here. Yes, this 3 is an odd number, but there's a 0 after a 5. So in this case, we'll drop this 5. We wouldn't add, we will not add the 1 here. So we end up having 3.3 as our final answer in that case. Okay. So those are some of the rules you need to follow rounding off numbers. Okay. Any question? So let's try out these questions here. Okay. So I want to solve this one. And also this. Okay. The rest you would do as an assignment. Okay. So let's write those ones. Okay, so we have 3.34500. So now they are saying write each value with 3 significant figures. Then you are told to use scientific notation if necessary. Okay, so what you need to know is that scientific notation does not affect your significant figures. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so we have 34,500 here. So we have 34,500. Then we have to write it into 3 significant figures. Okay? And we are told we can use scientific notation if necessary. Okay, so now let's try that one. So we know that for us to have 3 significant figures in this number, okay, so how many significant figures are we having in this case? How many significant figures are we having in this number?
Can I try?
That's the first thing you ask yourself. How many significant figures are we having?
Can I try?
Okay. So how many significant figures are we having here?
We're having 3.
Okay, so these zeros are leading zeros and there's no decimal point. Okay, so these are not significant figures. Okay, so we already have 3 significant figures. So you can have your final answer to be the same one. Okay, so this is your final answer. So 34,500 is your final answer because these 2 zeros are trading zeros, and we've learned that trading zeros, if there is no decimal point, they are not significant. So in this case, these are not significant. Okay, so we can have this answer, or we can write it in scientific notation if we want. So we can easily move the decimal place to this point. Okay, So you can move it to your left from your right. Okay, so you can have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it has moved 4 places. So you have 3.45 times. So when you are moving your decimal from right to left, you know that you're going to have a positive. So in this case, you are going to have 10 to the power positive. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The power positive 4 there. That's what we are having. Okay, so this is our answer. So this one or this one, still the answer. Okay. So these are still 3 significant figures. Your scientific notation does not affect significant figures in this case. Okay. Only consider these numbers here. These are digits. So you have 3 significant figures. Okay. So let's try the last one. Then the remaining ones you do as your assessment. Okay. So let's try the other one. Okay. So we need 3 significant figures from this number. Okay. 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay. So how do we come up with this? How do we write it in 3 significant figures? Okay. So we know that these are leading zeros. They are not significant. Okay. And there's a point. Okay. And you know that immediately when you put a 0 to this number, you know that that 0 is going to be significant. Okay. So if I want, I can write this number like this. So 0.012, I can add a 0 to this number. Okay. So in this case, this 0 is going to be significant. Okay. So this is my final answer. Or I can use scientific notation. I can easily move my decimal point 2 places there. Okay. So I end up having 1.20 times 10 to the power. So now I'm moving from my left going to the right. Okay, so if you are moving from left to right, you are going to have a negative. So in this case, you have -2 because I've moved 2 places. Okay. So that's how you do it. Okay. So you can solve the remaining ones. So you can solve the remaining ones. Is there any question? Do you have a question up to here? Okay, so if there are no questions, let's do the last part. Okay, so the last part is how you use these significant figures when you're doing calculations. Okay, so when you are multiplying, okay, so when you are multiplying or dividing, then when you are subtracting and or adding, okay, so when you're adding, dividing, when you're subtracting or dividing there. Okay, so let's apply our rules of significant figure. Okay, so let's start with the first one. What do you do when you are multiplying or adding numbers? What do you do? You are multiplying or dividing numbers. Okay, so when you are multiplying and or dividing numbers, you usually leave your answer. Okay, so leave your answer coming. So you give your answer to the least significant figures. Okay, so your final answer. So let's say if you are adding numbers, you follow the one with least significant figures. That's your final. So your final answer should follow the one with least significant figures. Okay, so let me have an example here. Okay, so let's say I have these 2 numbers. I'm adding this. I'm multiplying these 2 numbers. 34 times 0.12. Okay, so someone to give me the final answer there. Someone to give me the final answer. Just use your calculator. You multiply these 2 numbers. What's the final answer there? What number? What answer are you getting when you multiply the 2? Okay, so I'm getting 4.12. 4.08. I hope you're getting the same. Okay. So this is my final answer. Now I'm multiplying numbers. So I follow the one with the least significant figures. Okay. So here I'm going to check which one has the least significant figures here. So I have this one has how many significant figures? It has 2 significant figures. This one has 2 significant figures as well, because this is a leading zero, so it's not significant in this case. Okay, so I only have 2 significant figures. So meaning my final answer should have 2 significant figures. Okay, but in this case, how many significant figures am I having? I'm having 3 significant figures, because this zero now is in between numbers, so it's significant in that case. So I will need 2 significant figures, because the least they are significant figures I'm having when multiplying these 2 numbers is 2. Okay, so in this case, I'll write my answer to 2 significant figures. So now I apply the rules for rounding off. So I have an 8 here and I have a 0. So I'll add a 1. And 8 is above 5, so I'll add a 1 to a 0. So I end up having 4.1 as my final answer. Okay, so let's get another one. Let's try this one here for multiplying. Okay, so I have 2.50. I multiply with 9.331. Okay, what are you getting when you multiply those 2 numbers? What are you getting? When you multiply there, what are you getting? Okay, so what are you getting there? So me, I'm getting okay. So I'm getting 23. I have 23. 23. So I have 23.32. Okay, 75. So this is the answer I'm getting when I multiply these 2. Okay, now I apply the rules for significant figures. So I check how many significant figures am I having in this number. Okay, so how many significant figures am I having? So this is a trading 0, but it's after a decimal point, so it's going to be significant. So in this case, you have 3 significant figures. Okay, then here you have 4 significant figures. These are all numbers. They are all non-zero numbers. So you have 4 significant figures. So in this case, I follow the one with the least significant figure, which is 3. 3 is less than 4. Okay, so my answer should have 3 significant figures in this case. Okay, so meaning my final answer is going to be, so I will need 3 significant figures here. So I have 1, 2, 3 here. Okay, so I'm ending here. Okay, so I have 23.3. A 2 is less than 5, so I'll drop all numbers the way they are. Okay, so I'll end up having this as my final answer. Okay, the same is applied when you are dividing. Okay, so let's go to our part B there. So let's say we have 68.2. Then we are dividing with 0.78. Okay, so what answer are you getting there on B? So me, I'm getting 87.43. Okay, 589. Okay, so this is the answer I'm getting. Okay, so now I go back. How many significant figures are in each number? So here I have 3 significant figures. Then here, this is a 0. The leading 0 is not significant. So I have 2 significant figures. So my final answer should have 2 significant figures in this case. Okay, so meaning I'm ending here on 87. So the final answer is going to be 87 in this case. So that's what you do when you are dividing or multiplying numbers. Okay, so dividing or multiplying numbers, you follow these significant figures. Okay, so when you are dividing or multiplying, you follow this significant figure. Okay. Okay, so now let's go back to addition. What happens when we are adding or subtracting? So when we are adding or subtracting, we follow the one with least decimal places. So decimal places. When we are adding or subtracting, we follow the one with the least decimal places. Okay. So let's have an example here. So let's start with this one. Okay, let's try our C there. We have 0.839. Okay, then plus I'm adding it to 0.28925. Okay, so when I add there, what's the final answer when you add those two numbers? So when I add, I'm getting 1.12825. Okay, so you try adding, you see what you are getting. Okay, so now I'm adding numbers. I follow the one with least decimal places. You can see here, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places. So I have 5 decimal places in this case. Okay. Then this one has 1, 2, 3. It has 3 decimal places. Okay. So in this case, I follow the one with least decimal places. So when adding or subtracting, I'm using decimal places. When I was multiplying or dividing, I was following least significant figures. So get that difference, okay? So here in this case, my final answer should have 3 decimal places. So I'm going to have 1.1. So my 3 decimal places there, okay? So the 2, this is a 2, it's less than 5, so I'll drop my numbers there. So I have 128 like that, okay? Same when you are subtracting, you apply the same rule. Okay. So that's what you have. So those are some of the rules for significant figure. Okay. So do you have a question up to here? Any question before we end our class for today? Okay. Okay. So if everything is okay, we'll end here. Then we'll meet at 19 for biology. I'll send a link in class. Okay. Then I'll also send questions for this topic so that you try to apply the rules we've done here. So we end here today. So we'll meet at 19.